Yep.
So I spent the last 2 weeks watching the legend himself, Gordon Ramsay. There was a video that popped up called 5 Skills to Master in the Kitchen, and immediately I was inspired to make a World of Warcraft equivalent for this concept. So for this one, I'm going to cover some of the most important skills that you need to master going into vanilla to become a true vanilla gamer. So without further
I want to say one thing, because people are saying honor the roll. If a mage rolled on an item that they don't need, like a dagger or something like that, even though they can equip it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they should get the dagger. Just because somebody rolls on an item doesn't mean they should have rolled on the item. And basically, we weren't determining whether his roll was, whether he should get the item or not. Like, just because you roll on something doesn't necessarily mean that that roll should be honored. You shouldn't roll on every single item that drops, just hoping that you'll eventually get something. A bad example? It's not a bad example at all. I mean, there's plenty of other examples I can use too. I mean, if you're, let's say, a prot warrior or something like that, and you're trying to roll on some item that's like, you know, a DPS item, like an onslaught girdle or something over like a DPS warrior, you shouldn't roll on that at first, at least, right? And at least like until like there's maybe a couple of them in the raid. So like onslaught girdle is a good example. Actually, like, I don't know, like Flame Guard gauntlets is a better example. Flame Guard gauntlets. Gauntlets of Might are better than Flame Guard gauntlets for tanks. Especially if you're dual wield tanking or if you're just shield tanking. Either way, they're better. So if you're rolling on Flame Guard gauntlets as a prot warrior, I would disregard that roll. Even though you can equip them, even though they're an upgrade, etc., because that's not for you. You don't always honor the roll. It depends on why somebody's rolling. In order to honor the roll, people have to have honor while rolling. Rolling on every single weapon to hopefully finally win one and then base your spec off of that is not having honor with rolling. It has to be both ways.
Here's 5 skills that you should master when it comes to vanilla gaming. Let's get into it. Okay, now this one you guys might be tired of hearing about, but I want to cover it here. And I said in the last video that I was going to do an in-depth guide on how to do it. I've seen a lot of comments, people actually saying, no, you don't need to play that way, or why would you play that way? I've seen some other comments saying, can you please explain how to do it properly? So in many previous videos, I think I've covered this in 3, maybe 4 different videos. I've told you that you should be remapping your keybinds. So by default, your turn left and turn right are A and D, and your strafe left and strafe right are
I don't ever
Q and
use
E,
strafe.
right?
I don't like
So
using strafe.
instead of doing that, I've told you to rebind these to these. So turn your turn left and turn right A and D to strafe left and strafe right A and D. Alternatively, you can make this Q and E, and then you'll have to actually map your A and D to something else.
But you don't strafe?
Personally,
No, I
the way
strafe
like
with
to do
holding
is
down my
actually
right
just
click on my
making
mouse.
strafe left and right my A.
That's what I've always done.
Now the reason you want to do this, there's actually a couple of reasons. So let's say right off the base, if you left it the way it was, like this, then you have this, you have 2 buttons for strafing, and then you have 2 buttons for turning. That's 4 keybinds for something that's completely useless. You don't actually have to have that many keybinds set for your movement if you're using your mouse. So the best way to do it is to just make this A and D, or this, as I stated, Q and E. Because then we can actually go into the interface options and bind our Q and E to something actually useful within our rotation, because Q and E are probably the 2 best keybinds that you have access to. And a main reason why you want to be doing this is something that I've explained called strafe kiting. And if you strafe kite, it looks something like this. So you'll see every single time I'm auto attacking, I'm jumping backwards once, and I'm able to just move backwards full speed. Kill
Everybody does this.
Kill the enemy.
Well, everybody basically does this. This is a tool that almost everybody knows how to do. Now, I don't know, like maybe not everybody. You can never say everybody, but anyone, I think nowadays, if you have a swing timer, it makes it super easy to do.
Distance entirely and moving back essentially.
Yeah, this is pretty.
Speed.
This is a pretty
now,
basic
mix
one.
that in with using Q, E, and all of your other keybinds. You're able to do that while casting spells, running away full speed away from your target. So to do this properly, I'm going to turn my camera on, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how it's done. So if you look on my left hand, I'm using A and D to strafe, right? And then my mouse is controlling my camera by holding down on the right click. So holding down right click, I can spin my camera around, and I could do that while strafing left and right, which sort of hovers me around.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
What I'll do is go 1 jump side.
We're gonna just skip ahead past this, because I think that everybody here, does everybody here know how to strafe? Does everybody here know how to strafe? I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna move forward. Okay, everybody knows how to strafe. Let's go ahead and skip ahead.
There, and every time you cut your camera, you're actually able to see, so I can even guide myself up this and keep running. So you can kite while looking at your enemy, and also through the clipping of your camera, see behind you and guide yourself so that you're kiting consciously. So that you're guiding like, oh, I want to go through this tree right here. Irrelevant unless you actually know how to play your class properly.
I think most people know how to do that.
No matter what you're playing.
Unless you're Nixos.
Tank, if it's on a
then you just run into other mobs.
Like
you
whatever
weren't paying
class you're
attention
playing,
to.
this is a super important skill, especially on a hunter. So yeah, that's pretty much strafe kiting, and this is definitely a technique that you want to master.
Now this next skill cannot be stated enough. I can't explain how much emphasis needs to be put on this one concept. It's the concept of spatial awareness. Now in the new versions of the game, you basically...
What he's trying to say is don't fucking aggro trash mobs. That's what he's really trying to say here, just so everybody understands.
You don't need the skill whatsoever. You run everywhere. Aggro radius is super small. Even if you do pull a pack, it doesn't really matter. It's hard to cause a wipe outside of a boss fight. But in vanilla, aggro radius is quite big, especially
really annoying
if the mobs are higher level
fucking
than you.
annoying.
So when you're doing a dungeon, I guarantee you, if you haven't played vanilla in a long time, or even if you played vanilla like 4 years ago and haven't been back for a while, you are going to pull mobs accidentally. You're going to cause wipes in dungeon groups. It's just absolutely inevitable. There's pats roaming from around corners. You might turn a corner and there's actually a mob around there that you didn't know about and you'll aggro it. You might back up and jump somewhere and then there's actually a mob through a door somewhere else that sees you, comes running with 4 of his friends. In classical terminology, it's referred to as ass pulling. And I guarantee you, no matter how good you think you are at the game, how good you think you are at retail, you are going to ass pull in dungeons. And if it's not you, then it's going to be the male night elf hunter behind you. And you're the...
Or the dwarf hunter, like in our fucking beta. I'll be right back, guys. I didn't take a piss. Yeah, we just call it being a fucking idiot, though. A little bit different.
Here's the truth. Classic is fucking easy. And if you want a real challenge, then you need to play retail. Seriously, yesterday, I put myself on follow on Light Chop. And I literally, the whole raid, I was on follow the whole time, and I had Asmon targeted, and I just spammed rank 1 Flash of Light the whole time. I didn't target any bosses, I didn't cleanse at all, I literally just spammed rank 1 Flash of Light the whole raid and did nothing else. And nobody noticed or said anything about it. Nothing happened at all.
Okay, I'm back. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, okay. I love this. I'm just kidding. All right, let's go.
One who's gonna have to deal with it. So this is super important. Every single dungeon that you go through is kind of like a maze. There's little strategies at every single corner. You have to know where every single mob is, where every pat is. So try to develop a keen
That's one of the good things about Classic.
Awareness, spatial awareness, understanding your layout.
You have to pay attention.
Don't ever step too far ahead without thinking. You can't not think in vanilla. It's not like retail where you can go through entire dungeons, heroic spams over and over again while just like zoned out watching Netflix, hitting one.
I'm sorry, but like you can do it in either place, guys. Like it doesn't matter if you're doing fucking MC or whatever. Like I am never fully paying attention to what I'm doing in the game. Like unless I'm doing a mythic raid in retail WoW, I am never fully paying attention. Like I'm always like thinking about something else or whatever, right? Unless it's PvP. I pay attention during PvP because obviously it's not, something that I can expect what's going to happen.
1 and 2. In vanilla, you need to be paying attention at all times and understanding what mob is where, what mob needs to be CC'd, what pat needs to be avoided, where to run, how to skip through specific zones, and how to get around corners and different things. Like it's all really, really important, and it's a skill that you need to focus on day one, or you're
Right.
gonna have a whole lot of trouble, and you don't want to be the guy who's ass pulling, because those people that you're doing dungeons with, they're gonna remember your name, and when they're doing a Zul'Gurub pug or a Molten Core pug, they're gonna see you and they're gonna say, nah, I don't want this guy in my group.
Yep.
So this next skill I'm going to cover really fast, and it's aggro control, or threat control, threat management. Now again, if we contrast
I
this
need to
to the
learn
newer
about this
version
one.
of the game, it's not even really a factor. A tank goes in, thunderclaps once, or if he's a paladin, consecrates, whatever the ability is, and the mage can just frost orb, full combo, AoE everything, no worries.
Yep.
The warlock can AoE, everyone can just full on just AoE and kill everything right off the bat. You're never really going to out aggro the tank even after one spell. But in vanilla, I've stated this so many times that aggro is very delicate. So
yeah.
understanding how to manage your threat and getting a feel for what you could do and when you can do it is extremely important. Just like ass pulling in dungeons, if you're a mage coming from
What did he say?
for what you
Hocus pocus, threat management is bogus? True. Very true. So I don't know, guys, like how do I feel about this? Like, yeah, in general, yeah, like I don't really care a whole lot about the whole you know, threat management or any kind of bullshit like that. In my opinion, I think that threat in retail WoW is too easy, but generating AoE threat in classic is not, I don't like it. It's just, it's not good. They need to have like a better mix. I think in like Wrath of the Lich King or maybe like Cataclysm, one of the two expansions, tanking was at its best, where tanking was still challenging, generating threat was still a component to tanking, but at the same time, it wasn't necessarily something that you had to constantly worry about. And it's like in classic WoW, for example, if you're a Prot Warrior, you're not going to hold aggro on more than like 3 mobs, unless you have Thunder Fury or something else, unless the DPS are waiting for you to get aggro. It's just not really going to happen, unless you're using engineering bombs or other things like that. But I think that in your general toolkit, you should be able to hold AoE aggro to a general degree. Like Wrath of the Lich King or Cataclysm, those two expansions, at the beginning of Cataclysm, because they buffed threat in like the second half of Cataclysm, because tanks couldn't hold aggro on Ragnaros or something. Before that, I think tanking was great. I do think they made it a little bit too easy now in terms of generating threat, but they did kind of walk a little bit of that back. So threat is a little bit more of a mechanic now in retail, but it's still like 5%.
you could do and when you can do it is extremely important. Just like ass pulling in dungeons, if you're a mage coming from retail, you're most likely gonna have a tank pull a bunch of mobs and then just want to AoE all of them because there's like 10 skeletons there. Maybe you're doing strat or whatever the dungeon that you're doing. You're gonna go in for a full combo, and then everything is gonna get ripped off the tank and come chew your face off. I've seen this happen so many different times where mages specifically are just used to using their AoE abilities willy-nilly, but that's not something that you can do in classic WoW. And also single target threat management is super important as well. It's a relatively simple one. Just understand your threat management. Be careful and do everything in a controlled manner and understand your limitations. And also, of course, download a threat meter. A threat meter will save your life. More so on single target threat, but in general, it helps to understand how much threat a tank can pull and when you're pulling too much threat. So this one is
I'd say that's
target
accurate.
micromanagement. And what I mean by that is multitasking different utility spells or just multitasking in general when it comes to affecting multiple different targets. So in the newer versions of the game, you don't really have to do this so much. There's no real CC required to do raids at all. It's more of a PvP thing in general. And you also have a focus target or...
I feel like you don't really... Like, do you need CC in raids nowadays? I actually... Like, maybe there's like one mob you have to CC in like an entire raid or something like that. But I think more like CC in raids, you need to do more so... sometimes in dungeons. I'm talking about I don't mean, I mean in current WoW. In current WoW, like how many things you really need to CC? It's like trash. I think that they moved, instead of like hard crowd controlling things, they moved a lot of it to like soft interrupts and stuff like that. So you don't really need to like CC or polymorph something, but you need to interrupt it and make sure it doesn't cast an ability, or the trash does a mechanic that's, you know, relatively the same level of coordination required than a CC. And I think that the reason why they moved away from CCs is because they're so easily broken. And Blizzard designs all of the raids now to be run by retards, so they have to basically prevent any sort of a way for like one person to mess up the whole group. I think that's pretty much what happened.
PvP, you have arena targets, which you can cast
Aggro
spells on
CC?
without actually
That's a good
toggling
point.
their unit frame.
It's a very good point.
Now in vanilla, there's none of those luxuries. You have to actually micromanage and reactively click or tab target different targets if you want to get things done. So whether it's PvE and that hunter ended up pulling a mob, you're gonna have to reactively
And actually,
click
like, you know what, now that I think about it, I feel like Aggro probably had more CC management involved with it than every vanilla fight combined. Like the amount of stuff that you had to do to keep like all those mobs in place, and like you know, like planning out Gorfiend's grips and everything like that. Like Aggro, like now I'm just thinking about it right now. Yeah, that was really hard to fucking do. Literally everyone. Yeah, you had to deal and like micromanage 8 mobs at a time, move them away from the boss, kill them at certain times, bring them into the boss. Yeah, that was really hard. I mean, compare that to like Gar, where it's like, okay, well, you just banish 3 of them and then you kill the other ones, pull one away, and that's it. I mean, it wasn't really a whole lot to it.
Target to it, sheep it, or cone of cold it.
4 tanks into a bloody
and
guys.
then
Yeah, I
sheep
remember.
one. If you're a rogue, you'll blind, maybe you'll gouge, and all of this has to be done in a more manual way. Now in BGs, it's the same thing. If you're a high-end PvPer, you can't just put your mouse over someone and mouse over focus them, and that way you have the healer on your focus. You can do damage to other people, and then maybe focus counterspell the healer. You need to actually get very used to using your mouse to target different targets. And in Classic WoW, using that engine, I think we'll be able to use mouse over macros, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know
Or this
I don't
will
know
be
if you
more
can or
simple than
not.
it
I have
was
no
in
idea.
vanilla. I think there are some macros when it comes to mouse over. I personally never got it to work, and I just made it work without it by manually executing everything that I wanted to do. But in the new engine, it might actually be relatively easy to just make mouse over macros. But again, you're using your mouse again, so it's all about mouse control.
You have to
Vanilla
do
for
something,
PvE or
yeah.
PvP, using your mouse to click nameplates in order to interrupt a spell or cast a CC or do something is incredibly important. And also for a tank, let's say if you're tanking multiple mobs and one of the mobs ends up pulling away from you, clicking that unit frame, taunting it back onto you. So just in general, mob control and mouse control is super important. Now this last one is more catered towards PvP, but like most things in the player versus player world, they can equally be applied to PvE scenarios. I find there's this common misconception of people thinking that PvP skills mean absolutely nothing in the PvE world, which I think is massively disrespectful to most serious PvP players. So in conjunction to mouse and target control
I would agree with
is
that.
gadget usage.
Yeah,
This
sure.
is a huge part of vanilla. Engineering is by far the #1 min-maxing profession there is. There is really no other option. And understanding how to utilize these gadgets can save your life, save the group from a wipe, or open up opportunities for you to take on multiple enemy players in a world PvP scenario. There's also gadgets available outside of engineering in the form of nets that you can throw at enemies, magic dust which can put enemies to sleep, and of course the engineering core of grenades, goblin rocket helm, and spell reflectors. Mastering the timing and
See, I need to actually get these. Like, I don't know why I haven't done this yet. Well, I do know why I haven't done this yet. It's because I'm a piece of shit. But I should be getting the Shadow Reflector, the Frost Reflector, and all this other shit, too. I honestly don't know why I haven't done it yet. But I've been very, very lazy. And hopefully soon I'll be able to get these grenades. And then that way I'll be able to... you know, do a little bit more on PvP. Because I think that if I had these trinkets and everything, I'd have a pretty good chance at being able to beat some of the classes that I've been having a lot of trouble with. Even with engineering, though, I feel like I might not even be able to.
Use of these gizmos and gadgets will set you apart from the average player, so this is definitely something that you should put emphasis on and keep practicing.
Right.
Also, trinkets in general, I'd say, are pretty much gadgets, and there's a ton of useful ones out there. So make sure to keep this add-on here called Trinket Menu once it's been ported over to Classic. I'm not sure if it has yet or if it's available. This is going to allow you to swap trinkets on the fly, so when you use one trinket and it's on CD for maybe 5 minutes, you can
this would be
get out of
fucking awesome if I had
somehow.
this.
Maybe if you're a rogue, just vanish, pop on another useful trinket in the meantime, and just keep swapping trinkets over and over again, depending on what you need. As a hunter, you could also pop a trinket and then feign death in a PvE scenario, drop in combat, swap to another one, and then it'll be ready to go once the base 30-second timer is done ticking.
That's so
Of course, you can do
ridiculous,
that
man.
in PvP as well. So definitely master
That's
your gizmos.
insane.
Alright fellas, so there's more skills of course, but these are the 5 ones that I settled for this list. hopefully you guys learned something from this one. A lot of you guys probably already know most of the information like usual, but for some of you newer guys out there, these skills will save you some headache in the future for sure.
Yeah.
So try to master them if you want to have the best vanilla experience possible. So that's it for me on this one, boys. If you want to see more content from me, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Of course, you know the drill, soldiers. Hit the notification bell as well. Follow my Twitch, join my Discord. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.